The power pyramid. Where do you stand? The architecture of dominance. Most people never understand the structure they live inside. They mistake their position for natural order, their limitations for universal law. They believe the world is flat when they've simply never climbed high enough to see its curvature. But there exists a hierarchy, brutal in its honesty, merciless in its execution. 5 distinct tiers separate the forgotten from the unforgettable. And here's what nobody tells you. Movement between these levels isn't about luck or birthright. It's about willingness. Willingness to see what others deny. Willingness to sacrifice what others worship. Willingness to become what others fear. This is an inspiration. This is dissection. And we begin at the bottom, where most human stories both start and end. Tier 1. The invisible man walks among us, in millions. He fills offices and factories and assembly lines. He populates cities like cells and an organism, necessary but anonymous, functional but forgotten. And here's his tragedy. He believes he's free. He thinks the choices he makes each morning are his own. The career he chose, the beliefs he holds, the dreams he abandoned. All his, he tells himself. All authentic. But examine his life closely in ULL. Find he has reading from a script written by someone he has never met, living a story authored by forces he's never questioned. The invisible exists in a state of perpetual reaction. He wakes to an alarm he didn't set by choice, but by necessity. He works not because he wants to, but because bills demand it. He consumes entertainment not because it fulfills him, but because silence is unbearable. Ask him about his purpose, and he'll recite platitudes. Ask him about his agency, and he'll grow defensive. Because, deep down, underneath the rationalizations, he knows. He knows he's not the author. He's the audience. Watch him carefully, and you'll see the pattern. He seeks validation from external sources. His self-worth is outsourced to likes, approvals, nods from strangers. He modifies his opinions based on the room he's in. He shapeshifts not out of strategy, but out of fear. Fear of standing alone. Fear of being excluded from the collective warmth of mediocrity. His identity is borrowed, assembled from trends and talking points and tribal affiliations. He is everyone, and therefore no one. The invisible despises those who rise above him, but he calls this disdain righteousness. He rebrands his stagnation as humility. He frames his surrender as spirituality. Those who climb, he labels as ruthless. Those who dominate, he dismisses as corrupt. Not because he's examined their methods, but because their success reflects his failure. Their ascent reminds him that the cage he lives in has always been unlocked, and that truth is intolerable. So he builds philosophies around his paralysis. He joins movements that celebrate victory. He adopts ideologies that punish achievement. He surrounds himself with others who've also given up, and together they form a chorus that sings one song. This is as good as it gets. But that's a lullaby for the dying. That's a sedative for those who've stopped fighting. The invisible doesn't lack intelligence or potential. He lacks courage. The courage to examine his own complicity in his circumstances. The courage to admit that his comfort zone is a coffin. The courage to accept that nobody is coming to save him because salvation is undistributed to those who wait. It's seized by those who act. If you recognize yourself here, don't look away. Don't rationalize. Don't defend. Because every moment spent justifying your position is a moment wasted that could be used to escape it. The invisible stays invisible not because the world refuses to see him, but because he refuses to be seen. He camouflages himself in normalcy. He hides behind routine. And when his life ends, the world doesn't mourn. It simply replaces him. Now ask yourself, how many days have you lived reactively? How many years have you spent waiting for circumstances to improve while taking no action to improve them? How long have you blamed systems, people, luck, timing for outcomes you secretly know you had the power to change? The invisible doesn't feel weak. He feels reasonable, and that's the most dangerous delusion of all. Tier 2. The weapon something breaks inside the invisible man. Maybe it's humiliation. Maybe it's rage. Maybe it's just exhaustion with his own excuses. But something cracks, and through that crack enters a dangerous realization. I am not powerless. I am merely unused. And so he transforms. He builds his body. He develops a skill. He acquires competence that others need. He becomes useful, and in that usefulness, he finds his first taste of respect. This is Tier 2. The weapon. The weapon is no longer invisible, but neither is he autonomous. He has strength now, influence, even authority. But here's what separates him from true power. He serves his strength is leased out to structures he didn't design. His authority is granted, not seized. He enforces rules he didn't create. He protects systems he doesn't control. And in exchange for this service, he receives a title, a salary, a sense of importance. But that importance is contingent. It can be revoked the moment he stops serving. You see them everywhere. The police officer who upholds laws he privately disagrees with. The corporate executive who implements policies that disgust him. The military officer who follows orders that violate his personal code. The weapon is strong, but he's leashed. He's respected, but he's owned. And the most tragic part, he mistakes this for winning. He looks down at Tier 1 and thinks he's climbed to the top. He hasn't. He's climbed to the middle, and the middle is where ambition goes to die. The weapon lives for external validation. Medals, promotions, titles, reviews. He measures his worth by the approval of those above him. He needs to be told he's valuable. He needs performance metrics to confirm his excellence. And this need makes him controllable. Because once you understand what someone needs, you know how to manipulate them. His superiors understand this. They feed him recognition in small doses. Just enough to keep him loyal, never enough to make him independent. But something happens to those who stay weapons too long. They begin to notice contradictions. The boss who preaches integrity while practicing corruption. The mission that shifts overnight with no explanation. The realization that loyalty flows upward but rarely downward. And slowly, bitterly, the weapon begins to feel used. He realizes he's strong but not sovereign. Powerful but not free. Respected but not revered. This disillusionment is sacred. It's the crack where evolution begins. Because only someone who has tasted borrowed power and found it hollow can understand the difference between strength and sovereignty. Only someone who has served and been discarded can grasp that authority without autonomy is just slavery with benefits. If you're a weapon, if you've built yourself into something formidable only to realize you're still taking orders from people less capable than you, then you're standing at a threshold. You can stay here, comfortable in your competence, respected in your servitude. Or you can cross over. But crossing over requires something most weapons can't stomach. Disloyalty. Not to people, but to systems. Not to relationships, but to roles. You must betray the structure that made you useful. You must become dangerous to those who depend on your compliance. And most weapons can't do it. They've invested too much. They've climbed too far to risk starting over. So they stay. They become bitter but obedient, strong but hollow, and they live out their days enforcing rules they hate, serving masters they despise, all while telling themselves they had no choice. But you always have a choice. You just have to be willing to lose everything you've built to gain everything you've been denied. Tier 3. The architect of chaos. The architect doesn't enforce systems. He understands them. And once you understand the system deeply enough, you realize its weaknesses. You see the patterns others miss. You recognize that influence doesn't require strength or authority. It requires only one thing: the ability to make others believe your ideas are their own. This is Tier 3. The schemer, the strategist, the invisible hand. He has abandoned the need to be seen as powerful. Instead, he focuses on being useful to those in power. He becomes indispensable not through skill, but through understanding. He knows what motivates people, what they fear, what they desire, and he uses this knowledge like a scalpel, making precise cuts that reshape outcomes without leaving scars. The architect operates in ambiguity. He never commits fully to one side, because commitment creates vulnerability. Instead, he maintains relationships with multiple factions, offering each just enough value to stay relevant, but never enough to become essential to any single group. This makes him simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. He attends meetings but rarely speaks. He offers advice but never demands credit. He plants seeds and lets others believe they grew the garden. This level is where intelligence replaces strength. The architect doesn't need to be the strongest person in the room. He just needs to know what the strongest person wants. He studies patterns. He collects information. He identifies who owes whom, who wants what, who fears losing what they have. And then, with surgical precision, he arranges circumstances so that people make the choices he needs them to make. They call it free will. He calls it architecture, but this level demands a sacrifice that most cannot make. Authenticity. The architect has no fixed position. His beliefs are fluid. His allegiances are temporary. He cannot afford the luxury of principles, because principles create predictability, and predictability creates vulnerability. He must be willing to smile at enemies, betray allies, and reverse positions without warning. This makes him powerful. It also makes him alone. The architect lives in a world of transactions, disguised as relationships. Every friendship is strategic. Every favor is an investment. Every conversation is reconnaissance. He cannot afford genuine connection, because genuine connection creates blind spots. He cannot afford love, because love creates loyalty, and loyalty creates rigidity. He must remain fluid, adaptable, untethered, and this fluidity is both his strength and his curse. Most people cannot reach this level because they need to be liked. They need to believe they're good people. They need their self-image to remain intact. But the architect has killed his self-image. He has no need for moral superiority. He understands that morality is a luxury afforded to those who do play the game at this level. He doesn't justify his methods. He simply executes them. If you've reached this tier, if you've learned to manipulate outcomes from the shadows, if you've discovered that influence is more valuable than authority, then you know something most never learn. The game is won by being the strongest or the loudest. It's won by understanding which strings to pull and when. But be warned, this level is isolating. You will have no real friends, no trusted confidants, because everyone in your orbit is either a tool or a threat. And the moment you forget that distinction is the moment you lose everything you've built. Tier 4. The exposed throne. There comes a moment when remaining in the shadows is no longer enough. When the architect's influence reaches critical mass. When his network grows so vast and his manipulations so effective that remaining invisible becomes impossible. And so he steps forward. He accepts the crown. He takes the title. He becomes visible. This is Tier 4. The ruler. The ruler commands. Openly, he makes decisions that affect thousands, millions. His name appears in history. His image is immortalized. His words become doctrine. This is what most people dream of. The throne. The power to decree without question. The authority to shape reality according to will. But those who sit on this throne quickly discover its terrible truth. Visibility is vulnerability. The ruler cannot hide. Every decision he makes is scrutinized. Every weakness is exploited. Every failure is remembered. He must perform constantly, maintain the illusion of strength even when exhausted, project confidence even when uncertain, because the moment he shows doubt, the predators circle. The moment he displays weakness, the challengers emerge. The throne doesn't just elevate, it exposes. And here is what separates failed rulers from those who endure. The willingness to become what their position demands, not what their humanity desires. The ruler must make decisions that harm individuals to protect systems. He must sacrifice allies to maintain strategy. He must appear grateful while removing threats, merciful while eliminating opposition. This requires emotional detachment so profound that most collapse under its weight. The ruler discovers that kindness is weaponized against him. Generosity is interpreted as weakness. Forgiveness invites repetition. And so he hardens, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. He learns to reward loyalty and punish deviation with equal intensity. He learns that trust is a luxury he cannot afford. He learns that every person in his orbit is either extending his power or eroding it, and sentimentality blinds him to which is which. But the heaviest burden isn't decision, it's loneliness. The ruler stands on a mountain peak where conversations are performances and relationships are transactions. His friends are self-selected based on utility. His family is often distant, either intimidated by his power or resentful of his absence. He cannot confess doubt without appearing weak. He cannot seek counsel without revealing vulnerability. He carries the weight of his position in silence, and that silence, over time, becomes a prison. Most who dream of this level have no concept of its cost. They see the glory but not the isolation. They imagine the authority but not the responsibility. They want to command, but they don't want to carry the consequences of their commands. And so most rulers crack. They become paranoid. They trust no one. They make desperate decisions, and eventually, they fall, not to external enemies, but to internal collapse. If you've reached this level, if you've felt the suffocating loneliness of leadership, if you've made decisions that haunt you but were necessary, if you've looked around your throne room and realized everyone is either performing or plotting, then you understand what most never will. Being a ruler is not the pinnacle. It's a cage made of gold. Respected but targeted. Powerful but alone. Visible but vulnerable. And there is one level beyond this. One position that transcends the throne. It doesn't wear the crown. It doesn't sit in the light. It doesn't make speeches or send decrees. It simply ensures that whoever does, wears, sits, speaks, and signs exactly as intended. Tier 5. The myth behind the machine, the ultimate expression of power, is not commanding it. It's shaping the environment where commands are made. This is Tier 5. The phantom architect. He is not the ruler. He is the reason rulers exist. He does not enforce laws. He writes the incentives that make laws inevitable. He does not control people directly. He creates the systems that control people for him. The phantom understands what the ruler does not. Visibility is a liability. The person on the throne absorbs the blame, the praise, the attention. And attention creates patterns. Patterns create vulnerability. But the phantom has no pattern, no title, no public face. He is a rumor, a suggestion, a force felt but never seen, and this makes him untouchable. His power manifests through proxies. The politician who suddenly shifts positions overnight, the corporation that abruptly changes strategy, the media narrative that reverses without explanation. These aren't accidents. These are designs. The phantom doesn't make decisions. He creates conditions where the decisions he wants are the only logical options. He doesn't coerce. He engineers inevitability. To reach this level requires the death of ego. The phantom cannot crave recognition. He cannot need validation. He must be willing to watch others receive credit for his designs. Watch his strategy succeed while his name remains unspoken. This is incomprehensible to most. Humans need acknowledgement. They need to be seen. They need their contributions recognized. But the phantom has transcended this need. His satisfaction comes not from being known, but from knowing that he moved pieces no one else saw. Knowing that outcomes were predetermined by conditions only he understood. The phantom plays generational games. While others obsess over quarterly results and election cycles, he thinks in decades, centuries. He plants seeds in institutions, cultures, education systems. He funds both sides of conflicts, not out of confusion, but out of control. Because when you fund both sides, you decide which side wins by adjusting resource allocation. And the beautiful part, both sides believe they earned their victory. This level demands complete emotional detachment. The phantom cannot have genuine relationships. Everyone is utility. Family becomes legacy management. Friends become information sources. Allies become temporary tools. Love is not a feeling, but a strategic decision. And this coldness isn't psychopathy. It's adaptation. Because at this level, sentiment equals weakness. Attachment equals vulnerability. Consistency equals predictability. But here, that's what makes the Phantom truly immortal. He doesn't attach his power to his person. He embeds it in systems, in foundations, in institutions, in cultural narratives. So even if he dies, the machine continues. Even if he's exposed, replacements exist, because he built redundancy into his design. The Phantom's not a person. He's a function. And functions don't die. They just transfer. Most people cannot comprehend this level. They need to be the hero of their story. They need to feel that their life matters in ways others can measure. But the Phantom has abandoned this need. He understands that true power isn't about being remembered. It's about ensuring that even when you're forgotten, the world still operates according to your design. That civilizations rise and fall within structures you established. That people fight for causes you invented without ever knowing you existed. If you've ever followed this progression from the invisible masses to the obedient weapon, to the calculating architect, to the lonely ruler, and now you find yourself contemplating this final transformation, ask yourself one question. Can you disappear and still win? Can you trade your identity for influence? Can you accept that your legacy will be felt but never attributed? Most can't. Most need the spotlight. And that need is precisely what keeps them from this level. The choice that defines you. You've walked through the 5 tiers now. From the sleeping masses, to the wielded weapon, to the invisible manipulator, to the exposed sovereign, to the unknowable force. Each level demands sacrifice. Each ascent costs something irreplaceable. And most never climb because they're unwilling to pay the price. But you're still here. That means something inside you already knows you were never meant to remain at the bottom. Some instinct, some hunger, some refusal to accept that this is all there is has been burning inside you. You've seen through the scripts others live by. You've recognized that the game exists. And once you see the game, you can't unsee it. The question isn't whether you're capable of climbing. The question is whether you're willing to trade comfort for capability. Willing to sacrifice belonging for sovereignty. Willing to become what others fear instead of what others like. Because power isn't given to the agreeable. It's seized by the relentless. So I'm asking you directly, where do you stand? Not where you wish you stood. Where do you actually stand right now? Are you invisible, reading this and hoping it'll somehow change you without requiring action? Are you a weapon, strong but still serving someone else's agenda? Are you an architect, manipulating from shadows but lacking the courage to step into the light when necessary? Are you a ruler, bearing the weight of visibility and wondering if there's something beyond? Or have you already disappeared into the machine, pulling strings no one else can see? Write in the comments which tier you recognize yourself in, and if you're ready to climb, right? I choose the ascent. Let's see who's reading for entertainment and who's reading for instruction. Let's separate those who dream from those who execute. Because the path is here. The map is drawn. The only question left is whether you're willing to walk it.